So Herod did some of these good things, but Herod was cruel too. And when the Magi came and saying, where is he who was born king of the Jews? They got Herod's attention because Herod's all about is staying in power, and I'm the boss. I'm the king, nobody else. And when somebody was looking for the king of the Jews, he said, this person has got to go. And so he gathered the third group of people that you might not remember in the Christmas story. They were a group of people called the chief priests, the teachers of the law, the chief elders. And you know what they were? They were a group of people involved in what was called the Sanhedrin, or the council. There were 71 men that made up the Sanhedrin. And you say, why 71? Well, the Jews never do anything real easy. They go back and they looked at Moses, and Moses had 70 elders around him, plus one, that's Moses. That makes 71. So they had 71 in the Sanhedrin. And they would meet. They were the supreme court for all Israel. And any question about the law, they were the ones that settled. Any question about what the scriptures said, they were the ones that had the last say. There was a leader of the Sanhedrin, and he was called the Exalted One, or in Hebrew, Nasi. He was the Nasi. And the Nasi at that time was a man by the name of Hillel. Okay? Hillel was very respected among his people, and he had been Nasi for a long, long time. There's a story of one time of a Gentile coming and says, can you explain the whole law while standing on one foot? And Hillel stood on one foot, and he says, what is hateful to have done to you, don't do to others. The whole law is taken in this. Go and learn. And then he put his foot down. And so he described the whole law while standing on one foot. If you've ever been to a Jewish Passover service, and they make that little sandwich with unleavened bread and horseradish and apple and honey, Hillel was the one who invented that. So you can thank Hillel for that one. So Hillel, probably, the chief priest, other people from the Sanhedrin were called to Herod, and he goes, where is he who's to be born king of the Jews? And they were saying, our scrolls say in Bethlehem. And so Herod comes back to the Magi. He says, go to Bethlehem. There you'll find the child. And when you find him, go and come back and tell me so I can worship him too. So the Magi went and they followed the star. They found the child and they gave him gifts of gold and what's the next one?
Silver.
Frankincense and myrrh. That's right. 2 spices and gold. Okay? And then they were warned in a dream not to go back. So they went another way. And God then warned Joseph and Mary to go to Egypt because Herod was about to come and try to kill their son. So they fled, got up in the middle of the night, they fled to Egypt. And Herod waited, and he waited, and the Magi didn't come back, and he waited, and they didn't come back. And he says, I know what I'm going to do. And so he wrote an official order that all the children, male children, 2 years of age and under, were to be killed. And so he sent his soldiers out, and that night there was a lot of weeping and a lot of crying in Bethlehem because all the boy babies were killed in Bethlehem. Now, that's not where the story ends. The story keeps on going. Long about the time when Jesus was 12, he went up to Jerusalem to attend a Passover with his parents. And while he was there, he got into a conversation with the chief elders and teachers of the law, the Sanhedrin again. And so members of the Sanhedrin began talking with him, and they were amazed at his words. They were surprised. He had such great understanding. And they would ask him questions, and he would answer, and he would ask them questions, and they would answer, and his parents lost him. Can you imagine your parents losing you for 3 days?
3 days?
3 days. And they finally found him, and they said, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I had to be in my Father's house." Well, he meant God the Father, and they couldn't understand because they thought he meant his father Joseph. So they took him back to Nazareth, and he grew up. Well, still not the end of the story. Because what happened was, as Jesus grew and as John grew, you remember John and Elizabeth and Zechariah. You got to remember, John is 6 months older than Jesus. Okay? John was born 6 months before Jesus. And when John started talking publicly, he started saying that the one who's coming after him, the one he's announcing, the one that he is the forerunner for, is greater than him because he existed before him. Now, John is 6 months older than Jesus, but he means Jesus. How could Jesus, who was younger than John the Baptist, exist before John the Baptist? It was because Jesus always was God the Son. And when he came and was born in Bethlehem, it was just taking on human body. Okay? And John knew that. And Jesus came and he was baptized by him. It was about, a year and a half, maybe 2 years later, when Jesus was came to Jerusalem for the feast of Sukkot, or Tabernacles. And some of the people were listening to him, some of the people were seeing what he was doing, and they were divided. The people were divided. Now, a long time ago, right after John had baptized Jesus, there was something else that happened. There was someone who came to Jesus at night. Me. I was a member of the Sanhedrin at that point. Okay? So, I was one of the 71. The new leader of that was Hillel's grandson, Gamaliel. And I knew Gamaliel well because we talked all the time and he led the council. And I was listening to Jesus and I was seeing the things that he was doing and I was realizing that this man is special. And so I came to him at night because if I came to him during the day, the whole council would be mad at me and I didn't want that. And I said, we know that no one can do these things unless he is sent from God. And then Jesus said to me, you have to be born again. And I thought, born again? How can I crawl back into my mama and get born a second time? That didn't make any sense. And Jesus says, what is born of the Spirit is spirit, what is born of the flesh is flesh. And I still didn't understand it. He goes, how can you be a teacher of the law and not understand these things? And I went away thinking, and he said this. He said, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. He's talking about himself at that point. That everyone who believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. Because he didn't come to judge the world. But if you don't believe in him, you're judged already. I thought about that. I went away from that night just thinking.